Hello, bonjour, and hola, because today we're doing another episode of Pan-American News. It's been recently taken to my attention that the video quality of my last video sucked for like the first 50 seconds. Sorry about that. And also comms are turned off, which they're always going to be. I don't know, maybe a good thing. Anyways, today in the news, we're talking about why does Venezuela want to take over Puerto Rico and Guyana? Well, you may have heard in the news recently, the Venezuelan government, or just its leader, just was at a anti-fascist conference, like a national conference against dictatorship. Ironic. And then he randomly he looked at a Puerto Rican flag and he said, "We're going to take over Puerto Rico, or liberate," with help from Brazil. Bit strange, bit out of the blue, especially since Puerto Rico's controlled by America, so that's not happening, and it's never happening. But he also has he has a history of this. For the past little bit, for like the past year or two, he has been threatening and planning to invade 2/3 of Guyana for mainly oil. Before we explain those situations, I have to explain the state that Maduro's Venezuela is in right now. Here's some stats. So right now, inflation sucks. Venezuela's inflation is the highest that any country has ever been in. The price of like the Venezuelan peso, I'm guessing, has increased 53,798,500% in the last, from 2016 to now. That's how much it's increased. And guess who's been in power that entire time? Maduro. It was not that bad before this. It has the largest inflation in the world. 82% of its citizens live in poverty. And even though they have the largest oil reserves in the world, or at least one of the largest oil reserves in the world, they can't make any oil, or at least they used to make like 2 million barrels of oil a day, but now they make 1 million barrels of oil a day because they can't process the oil, because that's how bad their government's doing right now. And that's very important, because Venezuela used to be built off oil. Everything was run off oil. The prior president before Maduro ran everything on oil. That's how he got a bunch of public funding. That's how he got everything done. It became a petrostate, basically, because it had the largest oil reserves in the world. So that money, the oil money, the country came rapidly wealthy, but rapidly chained to the oil money. So if they just randomly stopped producing oil, or went down a lot, foreshadowing, then the country would be in a crisis. You know what happened? Roughly when Maduro went to office, the oil prices dropped and the production of oil dropped, which collapsed it. Maduro's government has a standard thing where officially it costs a decent amount. It's steadily 10 pesos to $1 American. That's the government money. But the actual money in the black market, where Venezuelans are getting their dollars from, aka the conversion, is so much more. And Maduro's government is also selling food in the black market to make more money, because they have more money, because their money is worth more than the actual money in the black market. So here's also the murder rate is extremely high, some of the highest in the world, and Maduro's government has an 80% disapproval rate. So here's kind of how his evil political rise kind of came about. I called the 2015 to 2017 political crisis, and I stole all of this from Vox. Sorry. You're credited, so don't complain about it. And I'm 12, so you can't complain about it. Anyways, the National Assembly, or Maduro's like rival opponents won a majority in like the parliament, their sort of parliament, threatening Maduro's rule and so he couldn't pass bills as easily. So he immediately kicked every Supreme Court officer out of the Supreme Court, replaced them with people loyal to him, and then the Supreme Court immediately said that they suspended Parliament, and aka making Maduro control the entire country. Even though he was president, he controlled the Parliament because the Supreme Court ruled that Parliament doesn't exist anymore, so they can't do anything. He rules the Supreme Court, who rules everything, and he became a tyrannical dictator. The Supreme Court said, oh no, never mind, retracted that statement like a couple days later. Damage was done. 100 people died in protest, so many injured. Not good, not a good look. And then I think like 2 years later, 2017, I don't know, I might be getting the dates wrong, I don't know, but guess what, they immediately got rid of Parliament again and replaced it with the National Constituent Assembly, which could rewrite the Constitution, aka overriding the Parliament. The Venezuelan people didn't have any say in this. They did have a say who was in the Parliament, in the new Parliament, aka Maduro rules the government now. Everything the government. He has no opposition because everything is ruled by him. Now he's becoming a tyrannical dictator. Everything in his country is horrible. And he did have, there was a, sorry, I'll put that up later. There was a similar like leader before him called Hugo Chavez in like the 1990s. But the difference about him was that he was actually popular. And he made most of his money from oil. Yeah. He used oil money for good. He did propose a National Constituent Assembly, but he let the people decide, and they decided, no, we don't want that. So he let that happen. He made the government more democratic and made the country more prosperous. And then he said he made Maduro his successor that got elected in 2015, and now the country sucks. So there's the background for you. That took 8 minutes. Wow. I'm gonna have to delete a lot of stuff for storage, and I just got the flight back up. So, all right, back on track. But you know who is doing good? Guyana, neighboring country. Guyana for so much longer. For a long time before that had been just a kind of backboard, irrelevant country. Didn't do much in global politics. GDP quite low. Like the GDP was the GDP was 5,400. Now the GDP is way higher. I'll tell you about that later. But now, so when Maduro was elected, 2015, a bunch of oil companies found some of the largest oil. They found a reserve that could produce 11 billion barrels of oil, and the companies did a little calculation. That could make $500 billion. This was a huge oil discovery, one of the largest in history. And this was a big surprise to Guyana. And the oil companies made an agreement with Guyana that they would split the profits 50-50 between the oil companies and Guyana. And it is estimated that that by 2036, Guyana will be making, just by oil, 16 billion per year on oil. They don't have a big population. They have a very small population, and the area that Venezuela wants to take over, no one lives there. So really, it's an extremely small country. And now, guess what? Remember when I was telling you about that GDP before? GDP used to be $5,000. Now it's $37,000. And they're even trading with the West. 63% of exports go to EU. Go to the EU. So, whoa. Guyana's doing well. And Venezuela's a bit jealous. They don't really like that. They actually, you know what? We should have that. You know what? Why does Venezuela have all that oil? Actually, like, way before when they were just getting their independence, half of Guyana used to be part of what is now Venezuela. But because the British screwed us over, we should have it. We have a good claim to it. So, now, Maduro has claimed, like, most of Guyana's water, which takes up most of the oil. He just claims all of that. And now, Venezuela, every map, every official government map, everything that they will display this all across universities, government buildings, includes the, what is it called again? Essequibo region of Guyana, which, by the way, he only wants this for the oil. 16% of Guyana's population lives in the Essequibo, and it's just jungle. That's all there is there. It's just jungle. There's no other want for it than oil. Speaking of being a jungle, you can't invade this. This is not going to be a war. Only thing they could do is amphibious landing into Guyana's capital. But the problem with that is that it's most likely that the U.S. will intercept it, because they have been doing like Taiwan style, like, military, like, Navy kind of shows of force, that type of stuff. Anyways, and it's extremely junglous, no road infrastructure, and the only highway connecting them is in Brazil, and Brazil has put troops on there to make sure Venezuela doesn't use that to invade them. So that's not happening. But despite that, new military infrastructure has been placed all around Guyana's border. They made an airstrip near a military airstrip near Guyana's border, and is placing settlements all along that border to, like, persuade, to make it more justifiable why they would want that. Since a bunch of Venezuelans live here, why don't they go there? Anyways, so that's the gist of it. Now, let's talk about the exciting case, the 30-second case of him wanting Puerto Rico. This is not a serious. This can't be serious. This is like Trump saying he wants to annex Canada. This is not happening. He can't do it with military force, at least, because that's what he's proposing. Because it's the U.S. military, controlled by the U.S. Not happening. Whether you're Puerto Rican nationalist or not, this is not good. And for some reason, they wanted Brazil's help with this. What does Brazil have to do with this? Brazil is not that big of a fan of Venezuela, from what I've learned. Hey, maybe that's not true, but I'm pretty sure they're not. So, and yeah, that's not happening. So, in conclusion, crazy stuff, am I right? That's it.